Hi, I'm Jill Santiago, Director of the Center for Social Justice and Human Understanding at Suffolk County Community College, and this is By Design, The History of Oppression on Long Island, a documentary series focused on the historical roots of many of the current issues Suffolk County residents face. Today, I'm speaking with attorney Robert Martinez about the controversial issue of immigration. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today about this. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart, so I appreciate your time.
Of course, my pleasure.
Thank you. So to begin with, I think there are a lot of myths about immigration, and it's my hope that through this conversation, we're going to be able to dispel some of those misconceptions and really get to the heart and really to the experience of immigrants that are trying to come to this country. So I think that maybe to begin with, maybe you could give some context to who are the people that are trying to come to the United States and why? Why are they trying to come here?
There's a lot of reasons, many reasons. Most of them are to escape poverty. They're to escape the consequences of certain political decisions that their countries have made or that other countries have made on their behalf. They're seeking employment a lot of times, and unfortunately, more often than not, they're seeking to escape extortion. Extortion and the gangs that have really taken a hold of their local communities. Many times the police are either unable or unwilling to help, and it just forces their hand. When your only option is to make money to feed your family, is to find work elsewhere, where else are they going to go? They're going to go to the richest country in the world, and a lot of times, in many cases, they have family here already. So the family ties that they maintain, they realize that there are more opportunities here and that they can be safer here if they can make it and if they can present their case.
How does having family here help them?
Really, immediate family is the most beneficial because for most petitions, when it comes to immigration, it's based off of a family member, a husband, a wife, a mother, father, son, or a daughter. So having an immediate relative here can be very helpful if they're old enough to petition. And that's one thing a lot of people talk about, are this whole anchor baby thing. That doesn't, infants are not petitioning for their mother or father. You have to be 21 years old before you can file a petition for a family member. And to be honest, if someone's been here 21 years and, they can wait that long, my goodness, give them that opportunity at the very least. But a lot of times people are coming here to escape some form of violence or extortion. And for those who do make it here, they break their backs to be able to stay here and stay under the radar. They provide a huge benefit to the community, but that's a separate matter. That said, the people coming here are people seeking better lives, people seeking better financial opportunities and economic opportunities, and people looking to possibly reunite with family that they've lost touch with.
Right. I think that a lot of people don't understand just how incredibly difficult it is to even get to the border of the United States. Just how impossible that journey is to get here, seeking the border, for some of the reasons that you just talked about. But I think there are people that want to suggest people should come here legally, come here the way that my ancestors came, this whole idea of get in line. Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, the line has changed in many ways over the years. These days, it is very, very difficult to become a United States citizen. To go from not having to being a national of another country to becoming a United States citizen is a path with a route that looks like a tree. It's a branch. I mean, there are various ways that you can try to obtain status, but remember, you have to have some sort of basis. You can't just say, I want to become an American. First of all, the easiest way is through family, obviously. If you have a family member, a mother, a father, someone that can petition for you to bring you in, that's great, that's ideal, but what do the people do who don't have that option? Right. Really, the only option outside of that, realistically, is through marriage. If they find someone who's willing to marry them and file a family petition and hopefully create your family here and you find, true love or what have you. But the issue is that the options are so minimal and so limited. It's one thing to say get in line when there is a line. It's another thing to say get in line and either line does not exist for them, it won't exist for them for a number of years at the very least, or it's just so, so ridiculous in concept where, or so rare an opportunity that it would be made available to them. So that last one, like extraordinary ability visas, things like that. There's only so many people that can play, baseball, or professional ballerinas,
Right.
or cellists, who are seeking status. We're talking about a realistic path to the United States, and for a lot of people that doesn't exist. And the only way that it does exist is so difficult that the alternatives make more sense than abiding by the rules that we want.
For individuals who want to petition for a family member to come to the United States, what does their immigration status need to be? Do they have to be do they have to be American citizens?
Right. Well, there are categories of
Okay.
people. There are classes of immigrants that can petition for others.
Okay.
It's actually very interesting. There are tiers. So the highest and best tier is husband or wife. If you're a husband or you're a wife, and you want to petition one for the other, or if you have a child that's under 18 years of age, they can be brought into the United States. That's essentially the best tier that you can have family-wise. Then you have individuals petitioning for their adult children.
Okay.
That's a separate tier. Then you have people petitioning for adult children with their spouses or their own children. Now, for actual citizens, if you're an American citizen, you can petition your mother, your father, your son, your daughter. If you're a legal permanent resident, so that's just a step under United States citizenship. If you're a legal permanent resident, you can petition for your spouse, and you can petition for your child under 18, but you can't petition for your parents, you can't petition for your brother or sister. It cuts down on the number of individuals that you can petition for.
It limits it.
Exactly.
To some degree.
Exactly.
Okay. So one of the most common ideas is that a lot of immigrants are coming to this country and they're taking jobs away from American citizens. Is there truth to that?
Yes, there is some truth to that. Unfortunately, people are unaware of additional truths that minimize the harm of that perception. The thing is when it comes down to brass tacks, the people who are most negatively affected by undocumented labor are citizens, Americans who are not, who haven't attained their high school diploma. Essentially, high school level or lower American citizens seeking jobs that don't require many skills. Now, the rising tide lifts all ships, and people forget about that. Undocumented immigrants, first of all, they hold up our agricultural sector, period. Our agricultural sector would be decimated if undocumented immigrants were told that they, would be deported. You've seen this in Florida. You've seen this in Georgia, where crops are rotting. And it's not a matter of they're taking American jobs. These are jobs where Americans have been encouraged to take. In fact, Stephen Carell had an entire section on his show that was Take Our Job, where it basically showed people trying to find American citizens to work the crops and work these fields and pick these berries and lettuce. And they didn't make it. They couldn't handle a day of work. Some of them, maybe made it a couple days, but that was it. The need for certain types of labor in this country is so great that there is no American citizen-only work base that's willing to take it. So we need to be realistic about that. Now, if you're a restaurant owner and you're working and you have the need to hire 2 dishwashers, and you can hire 2, you can hire 3, well, that allows you to move more customers. That allows you to move more plates. That allows you to hire more employees. That allows you to maybe expand your restaurant. Immigrants form almost the bedrock of a lot of businesses and corporations in this country.
Right.
Immigrants taking care of, our children, they allow their parents to work. They allow their father and mother to leave the home. They care for elderly care, health care. They are in every field, and they're doing an excellent job. The problem is we have to give them an opportunity to be more than just someone to work in the shadows.
So, it really makes you wonder what would happen if that sector of the economy was gone. What would happen? If immigrants stopped working today in the United States, what would happen to the United States economy?
Just look at what has happened in Georgia. Look at what has happened in Florida when they've attempted extremely anti-immigrant bills and the immigrants just stopped coming for a while.
Yeah.
It was hundreds of millions of dollars of crops rotting in the fields. And they know it. And the shame is that so many people, they want to glom on to this idea of justice, justice, justice without taking things into context, and they choose to be selective in what facts are we going to look at. All right, we're only going to look at, it affects some Americans who don't have a high school level diploma education. Okay, but it benefits everybody else. It's a net benefit, and when everyone benefits, we can provide more assistance for those Americans who are affected by it.
Right.
We can assist them in other ways, and we can create other opportunities. It's just a lack of vision. It's a lack of imagination. It's a desire to put so much emphasis on what's emotional as opposed to what's realistic and what's best for everyone.
Right. So this really goes completely against the argument that immigrants are a burden on our economy. It's actually saying the exact opposite thing.
There is, 25 years ago, the IRS created a way for immigrants to pay taxes. Let's rephrase that. 25 years ago, the IRS created a way for people without a social security number to register to pay their taxes. It's called taxpayer ID number. There's an entire Department of Social Security that is funded by the billions of dollars that are being collected by these immigrants working with these social security numbers, not work authorizations, just paying their taxes using their taxpayer ID number.
Right.
They will never see the benefit. They will never see that in retirement. They will never see a penny of that. That is a 100% contribution to us, to a population who's aging increasingly by the day, and we need that money.
Sure.
So, I mean, great, they're paying taxes. We know that. Let's do better than this. I think we're capable. You know, if we can land a man on the moon, we can find a way to help them get status. Those who've been here long enough and lived in a manner which is the way that we want people to live here, give them an opportunity.
Do you have anybody that you've represented who kind of exemplifies that idea? That's here, working hard, staying out of trouble, just trying to do the right thing and make a life here that comes to mind?
Okay, we have temporary protected status. TPS is a program where a lot of Salvadorans who registered timely back in 2001, they're allowed to work here. They're allowed to live in the country and work in the country and live their lives in peace. I've got a client who is about 45 years old. He's been here since he was about maybe 17 years old. All he does is work, go to church, and go home. He minds his business. He is the happiest person I've ever met in my life, and he has no wife, no children. He lives a very solitary life. Every time we renew his temporary protected status, I get so frustrated because if anyone should be allowed the opportunity to become an American citizen, it's him. But there is no line that he can get into.
Right.
He's not married to anyone. He doesn't seem to have plans to marry anyone. Why should he be forced to get married to someone when he's been here this long just for that opportunity? He has no children. He has no other family anywhere else. All he does is minds his business, pays his taxes, and enjoys his life here. Now, if anyone should be given an opportunity, it's this guy.
How often does he have to renew that? And what could jeopardize that from being approved or renewed?
Well, TPS has to be renewed generally every 18 months. There's a fee, a couple $100s that they have to pay every single time. And to maintain that status, you need to not have a criminal history. You know, if you get a felony arrest, that's it. You know, if you have to maintain your tax payments. Basically, it's almost a way of making sure that everyone who has TPS still falls in that category of people who should be allowed to stay in the country.
Okay. You know, it reminds me, this story of this gentleman that you're speaking about reminds me of one of our students here at Suffolk, who was one of our distinguished students this year and spoke at our commencement before thousands of people. She is an immigrant student from El Salvador and shared her story about coming to the United States, not knowing how to speak English, coming to the college to learn the language, and eventually just saying, you know what, I'm going to try to take a class for credit, and ends up becoming one of our, as I said, most distinguished students, an honor student, scholarship recipient. And when I think about our immigrant students here at the college, that's who I think about. You know, these are hard-working individuals who just want to make a life for themselves here. And that brings me really to my next question about this idea that the people that are coming here are criminals and, you know, they're bringing drugs into the country and all of this. What is the process? I mean, how do we know who is coming into the country when they arrive here and go through the asylum process?
Right. Well, it depends on the manner of entry. You know, people coming in on visas, obviously the backgrounds are checked, and the issues with undocumented immigrants and visas are generally visa overstays. They come in with authorization and then they just don't go back home again. For those seeking asylum, that's a different story. There are different ways to enter the country. There's different ways to ask for asylum. Now, there are ports of entry. There are places where immigrants can go and present themselves to an officer and say, I am seeking asylum. And the officer will take them in, they will get fingerprinted. That process is not illegal. That is not against the law. That is the asylum process. Now, individuals that they enter not through the port of entry, they don't report to an officer, they just come in, they cross the border, and they get caught at some point within the country, they get detained, and then they get their fingerprints. And there's information, the immense swath of information that the United States has at this point, data, they take on everyone that comes in. People, if there are problems with an individual, they get hits and they get detained. Now, that said, the immigration process, the asylum process, it's not easy. It's a process that takes time. You need to get evidence. You need to present it to a judge. You know, you need to allow for the process to happen. So clearly, when they're allowed out via bond, they need to appear for their court hearings, which the vast majority do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a process. I understand concerns, but these aren't people that are just being let loose within the country. There is a process that is followed.
And what would prevent people from actually getting into the country? I mean, there's been a lot of talk of a wall at the southern border over the last several years. Is that something that would stop people from coming in?
Nothing is going to stop people. When people, in the history of the world, people are going to go from one nation to another. What we need to do is find a way that's the most efficient, the most effective, the one that provides the best safeguards. When we talk walls, that's a non-starter. I mean, it's silly to even begin in that direction. We need to talk about immigration reform that allows for people to come in here without the need to say, I can never leave, because if I leave, I'll never be able to get back in again. One of the major problems that we had with immigration reform, you know, during the Reagan years was it used to be that migrant workers would come in, seasonal work, and they'd leave at the end.
Right.
When all of the immigration reform restrictions started coming in, when things started getting tougher, what's going through the mind of an immigrant is, thank God I was allowed to come in this time. You know what? I'm going to stay here because I might not be allowed to come back in. And, you know, I'm just going to do what I can to live as I can.
It's too much of a risk.
It's too risky
try to go
for them,
back.
or it's too dangerous for them.
Right.
And it's you know, where does the fault lie there? You know, there's finger pointing there everywhere. You know, we all share our own, you know, share of responsibility, but to at least pave some sort of a reasonable, rational path to status, that's where we should be beginning, you know? Or if you want to punch it, punishing immigrants alone, they're not coming here voluntarily. You know, they're individuals paying them. You know, if you really want to take this seriously as people say they want to take it, well, they're not being, you know, hired by nobody. You know, let's take a look at that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, those are the people who have, you know, influence in the local politics, and those are the people that are running jobs and corporations and businesses, and you know, they have a little bit more influence than other people might. Let me put it this way: if you upset one particular immigrant, it's not going to do too much. If you upset one particular business owner, depending on that business owner, there might be problems down the line for everybody involved. So it's a multifaceted problem that has to be addressed realistically, I think.
There's also just something so inhumane about the whole process. And I'm sure you see a great deal of that.
Yes, the lack of empathy is really surprising. I mean, it's really, I've been caught off guard at how cold some people can be. A perfect example is I had in one case young clients, late teens, came into my office in a panic because their parents had TPS. And with TPS, you can only leave the country with authorization. They requested that authorization for a surgery that the mother needed. The surgery took place. It didn't go quite as well as they had hoped, and she was delayed by about a day. in returning to the country, they wouldn't let her back in, even with the proof of her need for, to stay another day in the hospital. I was stunned. I was personally stunned at the heartlessness of that, because in my hands, I was holding a document from a doctor that said, I'm sorry, but she needed to stay an additional day, and they still refused to let her back into the country. Now, rules are rules. There's a very popular phrase, when the law is against you, argue the facts. When the facts are against you, argue the law. I see their point, but there's a certain level of humanity that I thought permeated the entire system that clearly it does not.
Yeah.
And it threw me that day. It threw me.
Yeah. What about protections for immigrants? What happens if an immigrant is a victim of a crime while they're here in the United States?
See, here's where how important it is that they understand their options, because ignorance is more dangerous than anything else. I mean, if you could have an individual here in the country, they're an immigrant and they're the victim of a crime. If they don't report that to the police, well, what's going to happen to the criminal? Do you think he's just going to stop at that one person? No, maybe tomorrow he's going to assault an American citizen. Maybe the day after he's going to assault 2 American citizens. Maybe he's going to become a danger to the community. So we need to get immigrants to understand that it's safe for you to report crimes to the police. Now, I'm a huge proponent of what's known as the U visa, the Violence Against Women's Act. If you are the victim of a crime, you are benefiting everybody by reporting it to the police. This is why we have to get immigrants to understand that police are not their enemy. Police are there to help the community. Immigration is a federal matter. Police deal with state and local matters. Immigrants need to know that if they are the victim of a crime, they can go to the police. Now, to encourage this behavior, USCIS and Immigration Services, they have what's known as the U visa and the VAWA and all of that. If you're the victim of a crime and you report it to the police, and you continue with the investigation, and you cooperate to the end of the prosecution, then you can request the opportunity to be considered for a U visa. And that alone it's a 2-stage process in and of itself, but it's worth it. And the good thing is that this is what we need immigrants to understand, because when they report that criminal to the police, he might not be harming an American citizen anymore. He might have finally been caught after, who knows who this person is and how many people he's harmed or she's harmed before. Right. And we need immigrants to know that police are there for the community, not to be there as enforcers of federal immigration law, that might take them away from their family. Because that harms people multiple ways, because now it's not only you're making it more dangerous for American citizens, now you're opening the door to criminality who might want to focus on a certain type of community. And then what are the consequences of that? I mean, come on, let's be realistic here. If someone's a victim of a crime, they shouldn't have to worry about being deported if they want to go to the police to get protection for that, or report it at least.
So in that last response that you were just giving about immigrants and reporting crimes, and you said that we need immigrants to know. Well, how do they know? Like, how is that? Is it word of mouth? Are there community organizations that support education for immigrants to understand how important things like that are?
Yes, well, mostly they learn through friends and family. Fortunately, these days we have the internet, and there's a huge wealth of information for people who are looking for it. If someone is genuinely curious about immigration, they can generally stumble upon a few of the main sites that provide information, but mostly it's through friends and family, and this is the reason why it's important that churches and local organizations, they reach out to community organizations that deal with immigrants. There are a lot of local organizations that they have immigration sectors or divisions. All you have to do is ask, and fortunately there are people out there that are very kind-hearted and very, very much looking out for their community, and they see the opportunity that's there, and they want to reach out and they want to help educate them. But the important thing, at least in my opinion, what I feel is best is in churches especially, and local groups, they should have someone who can at least point someone in the right direction.
Yes.
So that way misinformation is not spread. It's important that immigrants know that there are other options, even though they might be a little more rare than certain, than others.
What about for a student at the college that sees this video or really has a passion and has empathy for what immigrants are going through here? Where would you direct them? What kind of things can they do to support immigrants?
Well, I mean, we're in New York, so already it's an immigrant-friendly state. The important thing to do is to try to spread correct disinformation, point people in the right direction. There's a lot of organizations that provide proper information, pressure your local senators, but really, there's a phrase, each one teach one. You know, if you learn the truth about immigration and you've learned to debunk something, take that opportunity to debunk it. Don't stay silent when you hear things that are incorrect. I mean, a lot of stuff is up to opinion, but facts are facts, and reality is reality. So don't just stand there silent, you know, when you hear someone saying these things. You know, take a stand, put your foot down and say, hey, listen, that's not exactly correct. Or where'd you come from with that? You know, because trust me, these people that are anti-immigrant, I guess, quote unquote, however you say, they're very emotional, but they're lacking in depth. And all you do, you just need to peel back that first layer and you see they have nothing.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for helping these individuals who really are coming to you probably in their most vulnerable time, most vulnerable time of their lives. So I just appreciate the work that you do and for helping to talk through some of these misconceptions with the hope that students will take it forward.
Much
so thank you.
appreciated. Thank you.